Another way, another sort of way that nature sort of finds pathways that are good is through investment. And kin selection is one of the unifying theories that helps to explain good behavior in animals. This child of this monkey has a lot of the mother's genes, and by helping the child to raise the child, that mother is, through kin selection, passing copies of her genes into the next generation. Not surprisingly, because of kin selection, animals make huge investments in their young, or many do. Some of them use a strategy of producing just many propagules without much investment, but others use a strategy of investing greatly in their young, such as this adult oyster catcher feeding his or her fledged chick. The most exaggerated manifestations of this kind of kin selection happen in the eusocial insects, in this case termites, but also ants and wasps and bees. Because of their genetic system, they're more closely related to each other than most animals are, and they are very willing to give up their lives to help siblings, because those siblings contain lots of copies of their own genes. So kin selection dictates that they're willing to be very self-sacrificial. Another idea that was first proposed in 1972 by American biologist Robert Trivers is this idea of reciprocal altruism. That is, and if you live in a society where everybody knows each other, you remember past deeds. We certainly live in a society like that. Vampire bats do. Many animals do. It behooves you to treat others well, because they're going to know who you are. They're going to remember that, and they're going to be more likely to return the favor at some future time. And a long-term study of these bats in Central America found that, indeed, by marking the bats, this biologist could recognize them. Individuals who had, for instance, shared blood food with another individual. Let's say a female was giving birth that night and couldn't go out to feed, so she would have starved. The other bat fed her with blood meal, and she knows who that bat was, and she remembers that favor. And it was documented that individuals are much more likely to return the favor later if they've received that favor from another. So that was the first field example of reciprocal altruism actually in progress. Animals such as prairie dogs have the misfortune of a lot of enemies, but that may be partly why they've evolved to live in societies, and they have a very sophisticated alarm calling system. They have specific calls for things like hawks and eagles, ferrets, coyotes, domestic dogs, snakes, humans, and by manipulating things in the field, you can find this research team found that they quickly modify their calls. So, for instance, after 3 or 4 days of somebody discharging a shotgun into the ground each day near the colony, they modify their call to indicate that's the one with the gun. They obviously don't say that, but they have a modification to their call which indicates that. And by doing playback experiments, you can see they respond appropriately to those signals. Oh, just one other point on sort of virtue, if you like. You draw attention to yourself when you make an alarm call, so it's a sort of a virtuous act. We know about virtue, and we often do good deeds to others. I happen to be a bee rescuer in my part-time, in one of my sideline endeavors. Occasionally I'll be walking after a rain and I'll find a bumblebee or a honeybee who's been downed by the rain. They don't do well in the rain. They may get caught out foraging and they don't get back to the colony in time. You can pick them up, they'll crawl on your finger. They seem to know you're doing a good deed. They never sting. I've never been stung by one. And then I take it back and give it some sugar water on a Q-tip, and they refuel their tanks, and they warm up, and they're usually good to go, and they've got great spatial memory. You just put them outside, they'll fly off and find their colony. And just something of an aside, but actually a significant one, it always feels kind of nice to see that bee fly off. And I think that speaks to the good feelings we get when we do a good deed. It feels good to us. Our body squirts a little bit of endorphins into our bloodstream, and there's a reason for that. It's because we've evolved to be do-gooders, or usually most of us do good, and when we do good, it feels good, it feels nice. And that's probably because it's adaptive, and one of my theories about pleasure is that it's nature's way of rewarding good behaviors, adaptive behaviors. It's nature's way of saying, yeah, that was good, do that again, see how good you feel. I'm anthropomorphizing evolution now, but that's okay. Interdependence, another sort of idea where different organisms can depend, and species can evolve codependence and mutualisms that can become quite extreme, such that without each other they would die, they would perish, they would not do very well unless they came up with some new strategy pretty fast. I don't know if the ant-aphid farming system fits that, but it certainly is an interdependent, mutually beneficial relationship. The aphids feed honeydew droplet secretions, which they secrete out of their rear ends from the sap that they're drinking, in exchange for a police service, for a protection service. The ants are quite pugnacious protectors of aphids, and the aphids, which are soft-bellied and sweet and quite vulnerable, they benefit by having this protection service. So it's sort of a food for protection exchange.